You were born in San Jose.
I was. My parents moved to San Jose from Boston. That's where they met. So my family has deep East Coast roots. And then they picked up and packed a car and moved all the way across the country to California. They knew absolutely no one here. And they started a life. And they had me pretty soon after that. And so I'm a Cali girl, born and raised. I've lived other places, but I always come home. I always come back to Cali.
Back to the beach.
Yeah. I'm in the valley, so not quite the beach, but close enough.
Well, the reason I say San Jose is because that's a pretty interesting part of California. I mean, you've got the Winchester Mystery House up there and all of that. Yeah.
Yeah. I definitely think I'm more of a NorCal girl than a SoCal girl. I went to UC Berkeley for my undergrad, so I think I vibe better with people in NorCal. I love being in LA, but there's just this quality to people who live in Northern California. They're very laid back. They're very heart-centered. So I think I represent both of the aspects of California.
I think the fashions are nicer in Northern California.
Well, they're more comfortable, for sure.
Was it there in San Jose you fell in love with performing and the entertainment business? And how did that happen?
Yeah, so my parents moved to LA when I was 7, and both of them are not in the entertainment industry at all. They are in real estate and mortgage business, and so they have no connection to Hollywood. But I was convinced that we were moving to Los Angeles so I could be a movie star. And I went around to the entire first grade class I was in at the time, and my parents had a going away party, and I told everyone the next time they saw me, I'd be on the big screen. And my parents were a little confused and had no idea where this is coming from, and had to, sit me down and say, we're not moving to Hollywood so you can be in movies and TV. And I just didn't take that as the truth. That was just not my reality. So we moved to LA and I wouldn't let up. I just kept asking, and, I'd see kids on Sesame Street and, programming on television. And I'd say, how do I get to be her? How do I get to be that kid on TV? And eventually I wore my parents down, and I ended up getting an agent, going on auditions. I booked the 5th audition I was ever at. It was a national commercial for Joy dishwashing liquid. And I got my SAG card, and it just kind of snowballed from there.
It's an amazing business, because it's one of the only businesses, I think, on the planet where no matter how much schooling you have, and I listen, I went to USC, so I really don't have an education. But you still have to kind of apprentice into it.
Yeah. Yeah, you do. But you also, I think you just have to have, it's a mix of passion and ambition and pure luck. And then there's talent thrown in there too. I mean, obviously, I don't think you can really fully get to a place of success if you don't have some innate talent. And you can get that through going to classes, going to school. Some people are just born with it. They just have that natural it factor. But I think a lot of it is luck. A lot of it is being in the right place at the right time, the right audition, the right project. I had a few of those moments in my childhood acting career where that happened for me. And it's an amazing feeling to book that gig, to get to be on set, to get to experience what it's like to really make a movie or really be part of a TV series or a commercial or whatever that is. But, a lot of it is luck. And I tell all actors, your job is auditioning. Your job is not being on set. To be a great actor, you have to be a great auditioner. And if you get the job, that's the cherry on top of the sundae. That is the bonus. But you want to walk in that room and you want to nail every audition. And if you get the part, great. If you don't, you got to let go and move on. And so that would be my biggest advice. Now, writing's a whole other story. Writing, you got to bleed onto the page. You got to put it out there. You have to literally bare your soul. And it's very personal. I think when you're acting, you can kind of separate yourself from it. Not that the rejection isn't hard, but you can say, oh, I was being a character. Oh, I just didn't have the best audition that day. When you're writing, you're putting everything inside of you onto that page. And so when that rejection happens, it feels really personal. It's really hard to separate yourself from it. And you have to, because as you said, the business is interesting. It is. Very much a roller coaster.
Well, it is, but you are going into it prepared for this roller coaster ride. And let's get back to auditioning. You're good at auditioning.
I've been auditioning since I was 8, so it's something that I became very good at, and I loved auditioning. And my mom was very smart about preparing me, even though she had no connection to the industry. I think, she did her research and talked to enough people to know that in order for it to work for me, I had to just focus on being in that room for those 2 minutes and then let it go the second we left. And that's what we did. I didn't really think about it until another call came for a callback or you booked the job. You really just gave it your all and then completely released it. And that's the only way, I think, as an actor, you can keep your sanity, to be honest with you.
Yeah, but as a little girl getting, those no's, those rejections, did that affect you? Or was it just you knew instinctively that this is all part of the business?
Yeah, I think my parents kept me really grounded. They were adamant that acting was an extracurricular activity. School came first. So, we weren't trying to pay the mortgage using money from my acting career. So there was no pressure on me. You have to book this gig or we can't eat this week kind of thing. So it was really just fun. It was fun. It was enjoyable. It was like being a ballet dancer, doing a recital, taking classes. It just happened that for me, it was auditioning for big movies for Warner Brothers. That was just what I was doing with my after school time, But yeah, I think the no's can be hard. The rejection can be hard. I think I booked enough jobs along the way and had enough success that the no's became sort of background noise a little bit. I think if I just hadn't booked anything and hadn't worked, I think that probably would have taken its toll. But I think being so grounded in that, school was my main responsibility, school was my main focus, acting was something that was just an enjoyable activity, that I didn't really get caught up in the negative side of it.
Tell me about when you received your first professional paycheck. What was that like for you?
Yeah, my parents were really great they made a bank account for me. All that money went in a bank account. That was mine. I bought my first car when I was 16 with that money. It was a Honda Prelude from like 1985. It was a used car, but it was mine. I paid for it with my money. And that was a really wonderful and important step for me, and that money helped pay for college for me. So I think, money when you're 8 doesn't really mean that much. It's kind of like a game of Monopoly. Let's face it, money just is a game of Monopoly, even when you're an adult, right? What does it really, I could go into that whole thing, but I think it was about getting to do the thing that I loved and then being compensated for it. That's the dream, right? To be able to live your passion and earn money and get to do what you feel like you were meant to do on this planet. There's nothing better than that.
Let's talk about writing, because not only have you written for, shows like NCIS and Castle. By the way, Nathan Fillion, he's such a great guy. Just a real nice person. Even if he wasn't a movie star, an actor, would just be a great guy.
Yeah, and he's a dream to write for, by the way.
Yeah, because he knows. He is like one of those rare talents that know how to address a line, know what it means,
Yes. He always elevated the material. You always felt like it was in good hands when you were on set with him.
But not only have you written but you've written some of my favorite episodes, for Castle and other things. Yeah. And Scott Bakula is, again, I've known Scott for a long time.
Yeah.
Nobody realizes that he can sing. He's got a great voice.
He's a great voice.
Yeah. As a writer, do you, sitting down at your screen, do you ever just look at the screen and go, oh God, I have nothing?
Every single time. There is this crisis moment that happens, this existential crisis of, can I do this? I'm staring at a blank page. Are the words going to come? And I think my show, Virtually Single, is a perfect example of just letting that crisis moment move and working through it and not getting to a point of paralysis and just letting the words come. And I think when you're writing about something that you're truly passionate about, that comes from your heart, that comes from your soul, that moment passes pretty quickly because it's your story. It's the story that you're destined to tell. And I knew, I think the writing what scares you is something that writers are really kind of talking about right now, because Michaela Cole said it so brilliantly at the Emmys, that you have to write the tale that gives you fear, right? Because that's your story that you need to tell. That's the story you need to put out there. And Virtually Single was scary for me because I was a single mom who was going through a divorce during the pandemic, trying to online date. That was my reality. And to put all of that down, to then produce it, to perform in it, to make it a reality, that's putting myself out there in a huge way. I had to be super brave, not just in the writing of it, but at every step of the process. And so of course that scary moment is always there. And then you just have to, be brave.
And let's talk about Virtually Single, because it's such a funny and yet very human experience. I mean, when you do that, and as you've said a couple of times, you put your blood, your soul, everything on that page for other people to laugh at times.
Yes. Yes. I think you can't take yourself too seriously, right? I mean, I knew I was going to write a comedy. I knew I was going to put myself into situations where I was going to look like a fool, but they were going to be really relatable, and that the audience could watch and say, oh yeah, I kind of do that too. Or, oh, I'm so happy that's ever happened to me, or whatever that, initial reaction is. But I had this moment. It was August of 2020. We were like really deep in sort of the worst of the pandemic. And I was reading articles about, single people being alone and quarantining and how difficult that was, not having an adult companion. Then there's articles and, media reports about how hard it is for parents who are stuck at home with their kids and trying to then maybe think about homeschooling. And I was having both realities happening at the same exact time. And I wasn't really feeling like my experience was being talked about, which is that I was a single person living alone in terms of not having an adult companion, but I was also trapped in the house with my 4-year-old. So trying to navigate that, right? And I thought, I know there's millions of people having the same experience right now, and I want to be able to reach out and say, hey, this is a real thing. This is really difficult, but it's also humorous and it can have moments of levity and light, because I didn't want to write a drama, right? We were living the drama. We were living something that was difficult. So I wanted to figure out what is the angle on it that brings humor and comedy to a dark situation, while striking that tonal balance of not ignoring the fact that this was happening either. So I think that was the most difficult challenge of the writing, was and I think Castle really helped me with that, because when we wrote Castle, sort of our motto was how to make murder funny, because murder's not funny, right? But we had to every week find humor over dead bodies. Literally, we Nathan Fillion making jokes over dead bodies in every episode. That's a really difficult tonal balance to strike. So I'm trying to find what's the comedy, what's the humor, what's the joke, and we're all living through a once in a lifetime pandemic. And I think I found it. I mean, you can tell me, but the humor was there. I think it was also surrounding myself with very funny people who were all willing to take a leap of faith and jump into this project that I had, I would basically call up my actor friends and say, hey, I'm shooting a show during the pandemic. You want to join? And they all said yes, having no more information than that, by the way. I basically just said, you're going to be safe in your own house. We're shooting all over Zoom. And it's going to be a show about online dating during the pandemic. And that was about all I told people. And they just really went for it with me. And I'm so grateful to everyone involved. And the entire cast, the crew, everyone just stepped up in such huge ways for me. And you see it, you feel the investment when you watch the show. You feel people's passion, you feel how dedicated they are to making this great. And it really just shines when you watch it.
Well, and there's also this brilliant awkwardness about it as well, And you have to look at people like, that do this, for a living, like Larry David and but there's that kind of wonderful element that makes it very human in every episode.
Well, online dating is really awkward, and it's really strange over video chat because that's all we had. Like at the time, it wasn't safe to meet anybody in person. And especially because I had a child, I couldn't put my child's health and safety on the line just so I could go on a fun date with someone. So it really was all virtual. And I joined this matchmaking service where they were setting us up completely blind. So I would go on these video chat dates where I would show up and I had no idea what the person was going to be like on the other side of the screen.
This portion of Screen Chatter is presented by VP Dental. Check out our great dental plans starting at just $16 per month. Years ago in New York, the greatest writers of the time, Mel Brooks, Carl Reiner, Sid Caesar, there was this nuclear, Woody Allen was involved, and they would meet once a week, and they would call it the Algonquin Roundtable. I don't know if you know that from the history of television, but they would meet at Rockefeller Center once a week and go over story ideas. And it seems to me in this day and age that doesn't happen because everybody's scared of somebody stealing an idea.
Yeah.
Does that really happen? Do people steal ideas from each other?
I will be really frank with you. There are only so many ideas, right? At the end of the day. And everything comes back to your story is usually about something involving love and relationships, maybe death. That could be thrown in there too. But there's only so many subjects you can write about, right? So you could very well come up with an idea that is exactly the same as someone 3 states away that you have no connection with, but you both came up with the same concept. I'm sure somebody came up with an online dating show on Zoom. I just happened to get there first, right? But I think that the unique part of you telling your story, even if someone else has the exact same idea, is that only you can tell your version of that story. So there's plenty of movies out there, if you think about it, that have similar themes, similar ideas, but they all feel different because different people write them. And they have a different point of view on the subject matter, and they're coming at it from a different way. And no one can really steal your idea because no one's going to write it the same way that you're going to write it. So yeah, could someone write another, I have a murder mystery show. Could someone write the exact same murder mystery show? Of course, but no one is going to write it the exact same way that I'm going to.
I go back to Castle for that because Castle to me was always the thin man. I mean, they did it first back in the 1930s.
Yeah.
But Castle was brilliant in the way that Stanya and Nathan worked together.
Yeah.
In this, it was more of a bickering situation at first, which we all love. I love to bicker.
Yeah, but I mean, and people compare it to Moonlighting too, right? It's similar to, it's a will they, won't they romantic comedy with crime and mystery thrown in. So it's not like we were not reinventing the wheel, but when you cast someone like Nathan, when you cast someone like Stana, it infuses it with something completely different than you've ever seen before. Mm-hmm. So it does set itself apart. It does feel different. I mean, look how many medical shows there are and law shows and cop shows. I mean, they're kind of a dime a dozen, but yet they are all super unique because the casting is different, the writing is different, the style is different. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I think there's the fear. There is the fear, of course, of someone's going to steal my idea, but I think you have to overcome that and realize that you're going to be far better off sharing your ideas, getting feedback, having people read your work, having people respond to it. It's going to make you a better writer. And so that fear is actually holding you back. And then again, no one can just take your script and put their name on it. No one's going to do that. I mean, hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah.
But you're describing, musicians, because there's only a certain amount of notes, and yet the combination of those notes make billions of different alternatives.
Yeah, but that's what writing TV and film is all about, right? No one can write that same combination of words that you can. And so you have to trust and believe that you're going to write that version that's going to set itself apart from everything else out there. And again, I just taught a class about, writing and acting actually. And my biggest piece of advice is share your work, get people to read it, because it's not doing any good sitting on your computer. How is that getting your message and your story out into the world? It's not. And so the best thing you can do is get it out there, send it to festivals, have a writers group that you trust, like you were talking about, that you can share your work with and get feedback. And yeah, I think, for a long time, I was scared to share my scripts, of course. And then you just have to move past that,
As a single mom, I want to make sure my kids have healthy teeth. Going to the dentist can be expensive. Just a simple cleaning can cost over $100. Then I found TDA, and for about $1 a day, Total Dental Administrators covers my family on over 200 dental procedures. Whether you're an individual, a family, self-employed, or retired, your acceptance is guaranteed for one of these policies. Call or click for your free information kit and see how affordable dental health can be.
All the best to you, success in everything that you do. I am such a fan of yours, and even more so now, because you are just an incredible conversationalist, and it was lovely to sit here and listen to your stories and about your life and career.
Thank you so much, Tony. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk with me.
I am in your debt, so there.
Oh,
Thank you so much, Kate.
Thanks so much.